we would have a Q&A session to answer any of the questions we have. So first of all, I would like to introduce Mr. M. Gopala Krishna. It's a privilege to have an orator and a leadership expert, and he has several national level awards and accolades to his credit, including the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award from HMA, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose National Award for Excellence in Industrial Development, and many more. Thank you, sir. We are honored to have you here today. So please help me in welcome.
Yes, please come down. Just for the formal. Thank you, sir. We are very happy. Over to you, sir.
Ms. Hema Jain, President of HMA, distinguished speakers for today, Shri Sanjay Kapoor, Shri Vijay Mitra, and all my dear friends. And amongst the audience, I spot quite a few friends of mine, including the past president of FAPC, Shri Shekhar Agarwal, who happens to be also an NLP specialist, and he has actually been conducting a large number of classes entitled Success Unlimited. His theme has been focus. If unlimited, success will also be unlimited. But that focus at any particular point of time has to be on a particular aspect. That is where I think he has scored a great deal. Now let me actually begin first of all by thanking HMA as well as Positive Shift International for giving me an opportunity to exchange a few thoughts on a very important subject, namely strategies for stepping up leadership. I would like to deal with it first in terms of what is leadership, two, in terms of what are the strategies and what are the methodologies that we can follow for stepping up the existing leadership and making it more evident, more patent. That, I think, is what is very important. First of all, I would like to say, what is leadership? Leadership comes from a Norwegian word called ledere. Ledere actually means finding the way. Finding the way is what it means. In other words, you need to set the direction, and alongside of setting the direction, you need to also set the pace in achieving your goal. So two things become very important. One is the direction in which you are going, to the speed at which you are actually going and achieving your goal. So we often refer to this in very simple terms. In one hand, the leader has a compass to set the direction. In the other hand, he holds a clock to set the pace at which he is actually achieving it. A very simple thing to remember, particularly for my young friends here. And what is important for all leadership is clarity. Clarity is very important, and clarity is of two kinds for leadership. One is conceptual clarity. Clarity of the idea, clarity of the thought, clarity of the goal. This is conceptual clarity. The concept works in a context. So you need a contextual leadership also. So you see, one is the concept, the second is the context. All concepts may not work in all contexts. So you need to link the concept with the context. The context also requires a content. The content is very important. The content actually requires a connectivity between the leader and the follower for whom it is intended. And it also needs a communication to be able to correctly explain what you are wanting to do. Unless the clarity is able to cover all these aspects, then only can you say the leader is clear in his mind as to what he wants to achieve. It is called conceptual clarity. The second clarity is regarding the goal. That means you set your goal. So one is called goal clarity. The goal clarity requires your role clarity. Unless you know your role in achieving that goal, you cannot become a leader. So first is the goal clarity, second is the role clarity. The role clarity again asks you to understand the responsibility you are taking. Leadership is not a privilege, leadership is a responsibility. Therefore, what responsibility are you taking then becomes very important. The responsibility to be discharged requires resources. What are the resources that you are having? Even if you have the resources, there will be 2 or 3 routes available. Which route are you going to take? Are you taking the short road? Are you taking the arduous road? What is the road that you are actually doing? Are you taking a consensual road because you want to carry the team with you? So you have also a question of what route are you going to follow. Apart from the route that you are taking, you will also have to look at what results can I expect out of this effort. The results also, people will be saying, what are the rewards I am going to get for actually cooperating with you? So you see, even in the goal achievement, you need to actually factor in all these things so that there is a complete clarity in the mind of the leader as to how he is going to lead. And that is why we always say the leader's function is visualization, second actualization. From visualization to actualization, he has to lay the roadmap. And what is a vision? The vision of a leader is something which is looking into the future, bringing the future into the present, speeding up the process of getting the future into the present. That is really a function of leadership. And that leadership, how can we actually accelerate this one? So that is why we say every leader has a vision and he has to convey that vision. That vision has to be broken up into a mission, so that each one knows what is his role in that particular. The mission leads to action. But in between mission and action, the most important thing we should understand is creating the passion. The leader's final role is creating the passion in the team, that they are aware of the vision, they are aware of the mission, and they are working with the passion, and that is leading to action, which gives you quick results. So that passion is what is very important, and the leader's primary function is to be passionate himself about achieving the goal and transmitting that passion to everyone he comes into contact with. This is the most important. So we always say a leader has a vision, he has a mission, he has a passion. And that passion must also have, for a good leader, an element of compassion. There has to be an element of compassion. That compassion also must be accompanied by the fusion of minds and hearts of the people. And it must also lead to a unison of thoughts. That is why we say all leaders' main function is Sangachadvam, they say let us walk together. Samvadadvam, let us talk together. Samvo manam si janatam, let us comprehend and understand one another together, so that if you do these 3 things, you can walk the talk together. You can walk the talk together if you are able to do this. So you see how important it is to actually keep these factors at the back of your mind. In India, we also have developed a great deal of leadership skills. The Bhagavad Gita is an epitome of leadership, of how a demoralized Arjuna is made to fight and win the war. That is the real leadership which Krishna, by his exhortation, brought about the situation. So you look at what we say in the Indian method of management, we say Kalpana is a dream. The leader's function is to dream. The leader's function is to make the dream a reality. How does he make the dream a reality? First and foremost, Kalpana requires Sankalpana, determination. Sankalpana requires Parikalpana, plan of action. Parikalpana requires Rupakalpana. Rupakalpana requires Karya Nirvahana. Karya Nirvahana leads to Karya Sadhana. You see how simple it is, but you see how many steps. When you say stepping up to leadership, you need to understand these are the steps you will have to take if you have to go up the ladder of leadership. This is a point I want every one of you to please keep at the back of your mind. The second thing is, passion can be transmitted only when you shed the ego. You must shed your ego. So only when the I becomes we, you create a passion. Otherwise, you don't create a passion within oneself. You transmit the passion. So when you transmit the passion, I becomes we. What happens in a family? Till you are married, you are I. The moment you are married, you become we. So you see, that transition has to actually take place. That transition is extremely important in all leadership because you have to carry the team with you. This is one point I want you to keep. The next thing is that passion also says, I can do, we can do. So that three words are very powerful, and that is where I think positive shift becomes very important. When I say, I can do, it's a very powerful statement. Three strong words, I can do. The same words, I'll put it in a different way. Can I do? I am defeatist. So the question is, how do you make can I do to I can do? That is what I think Positive Shift International will have to do. How can I become I can do? So this is, I think, a very important point we need to keep at the back of our mind. Also at the same time, all leadership says, not only you know your role, you must go beyond your role. You must go beyond your role. That is why it is said, in any games, in any sports, what happens? Who wins? The person who works not only to the limits of endurance, but beyond the limits of endurance. So you go not only up to the limit, you little more than the limit. So therefore, the Olympic Games motto is also in the comparative degree. It says, Citius, move faster. Altius, aim higher. Fortius, become stronger. It does not say stronger than whom, faster than whom, higher than whom. It only says you are capable of doing much better. And why don't you keep on actually competing against yourself? Because every individual excels himself. He does not excel someone else. So how do you ensure that you are actually fully utilized? That is where the question comes. There is always a latent talent in everyone. That latent talent, that latent must become potent, where training helps. Potent must become patent, where everyone follows you. You see how? Three simple words. You actually make the latent become potent and the potent become patent. So this is the process by which leadership can be actually developed. This is one point. Second, all leaderships involve an element of inward looking feeling. You have to see inwards before you can see outward. That is why we say in leadership, first teach people to see inward. If you see inward, you look outward better. When you look outward, you move onward. When you move onward, you take others and together go forward. So you have a very simple thing. See inward, look outward, move onward, together go forward. So this is a function which leaders have internalized, and that is why all words relating to leadership begin with the word in. Intelligence, it is inside you, something telling you inside you. Innovation, you are thinking something new. Intuition, it is something which is coming within yourself because you are tutoring yourself. You see, all these things are expressions of something which is happening inside you. And that is what is actually being externally seen by other people. So how do you actually therefore reflect first before you act? So you have to reflect before you act. That is why the Bhagavad Gita also says, Lord Krishna says, very important thing, Yogeshwara Krishno yatra partho danurdaraha tatra Sri Vijayor Bhuti Dhruva Nitir Mama. What it means is, unless there is a combination of thought and action, the thought is the first part, the second part is the action. Linking thought and yoga, karmasu kausalam. Any job efficiency and effectiveness comes from linking thought with action. And this linking thought with action must happen through a process of a dialogue, of a debate, and of a discussion. And that is why the Bhagavad Gita also says, the best way of learning, sambodhana bodhitam. Sambodhana bodhitam. All the teaching in the Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue that is taking place, and questions are being answered. So it is the responsibility of people to ask questions, and the questions have to be answered by a leader. Very important. That is why we say all leadership begins with listening. Listening is the primarily thing. Again, in the Shastras, in the Veda, it is said 3 things. A leader has to do one thing. Preraka, he has to motivate. Bodhaka, he has to teach. Mokshada, he has to give you salvation. These 3 things are the function of every guru. These 3 things the guru has to actually do. And what is very important of the guru is that he actually tries to understand what is your swabhava or your nature. Our parents give us the name. It is called Swanama. You expect the child to live up to that name. You give a name. My parents gave me Gopala Krishna. Maybe they wanted me to be like Krishna. That may be their view. But Swarupa, my body must also assist me in achieving that thing. And what my body physically, mentally, otherwise is, that can help me to do certain things. So one is called Swanama, the other is called Swarupa, third is called Swabhava. The guru acts on your Swabhava. And once that Swabhava is understood, he converts that Swabhava to Swakarma, the job that you have to do. The Swakarma, if he does well, that becomes his Swadharma. So this is actually the way in which we link up all these things together. So how this linking has to be done has to be in relation to each individual person, and understanding the swabhava of the person and molding him to see in which area his aptitude is evident, in which area his aptitude is good, where should the attitude be changed, and how do you actually make him go up the altitude. So all these things are part of the way in which we need to actually look at it. The second thing I want to actually tell you is, very simply put, it means linking thought and action is the function of a leader. And therefore we say, it was asked of King Janaka, who was a Rajarshi. He was not only a Rishi, he was a Brahmarshi and a Rajarshi. A Rajarshi means he has to also rule. He has to govern a country. So what he was asked, and he is reported to have said, the final test of a leader is, he must be actively calm and calmly active. You must be actively calm and calmly active. You see how beautifully it has been expressed. It was asked of Confucius, the Chinese saying, what is leadership? The Chinese saying said, leadership means he is kingly outside, saintly inside. He is kingly outside, saintly inside. So you need to have this combination very, very importantly. That is why they say, what is, according to Indian philosophy, who is a leader? Again the Bhagavad Gita gives an answer. It says, yad yad acharati shreshtaha tat tat eva itare janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokaha tat anuvartate. What it means is, there is a twofold duty of a leader. One, he sets high standards and keeps on raising the standards. That means he keeps on raising the ceiling. So this is one important thing. He elevates the standard. He moves from ordinary standards to good standards to best standards to next generation standards. So this is a very important thing that he does. The second thing he does is actually that he actually becomes a role model. That means he is some person who can be emulated. So that is why they say all leaders simplify, exemplify. They simplify, they exemplify. So this is thing. And all leaders bring about change. And that is where you need to understand the distinction between a manager and a leader. A manager works in the system. A manager works in the system. The leader works on the system. The leader works on the system. So you see what a big difference it makes. That the system is molded. The system responds to the touch of the master. So this is a very, very important thing of leadership. The second point I want is, all leaders must understand the inner urge. There is an urge in every one person to do better. And that's a natural thing for every human being. And another natural thing for every human being is to work. No one can remain idle without work. You go on a holiday, after 2 days you feel bored. Because the entire system is that you cannot remain. That is why you know what happens in Tirupati. Suprabhatam, the first song to the Lord when he is woken up is Kaushalya Supraja Rama Purva Sandhya Pravartate Uttishta Narashardhula Kartavyam Daivamannikam. What it says is, Lord, you are still sleeping. Already it is early morning, the sun has risen, so many people are waiting, your work has to be done, better get up. Now there is no time for sleeping, you have to do your duty. So you see how important it is that no person can remain without doing something that he has to do. So that is the order of nature. So that is what very important for us to look at it. Second is to develop a positive attitude. That is where I think Positive Shift International comes to first understand the swabhava of the person, mold the swabhava of the person. He excels in his work, he exceeds the expectations, and he expands his personality. 3 E's are very important for leaders. Excel yourself, exceed the expectations, and expand your personality. And that is where, when you expand your personality, individuality must become universality. So all leadership implies one important thing: Vyaktitva to Vikasa Vyaktitva. Vyaktitva to Vikasa Vyaktitva. And a Vikasa Vyaktitva, Vikasa means Vidyaya Karya Samuchayaha. That means with the help of your knowledge and your attitude and your commitment, that is where you bring about development. That is where this development also takes place. This is a very important thing. The other thing is to know one's potential, and that is where you have the distinction between a coach and a mentor. A coach generally is applied in terms of sports. And in sports, let me also relate a small thing. I used to be a captain of the hockey team in the university. I had to once go and play with the EME in Secunderabad. They are very tough soldiers. I was a little funky about whether we can really take on the soldiers. So I went to my physical director, he was Mr. Muhammad Gauss. So I told him, साहब मुझे डर लग रहा है, उनसे हम कैसा खेलेंगे, वो तो थगड़े हैं. He said, बाबा डरने की बात नहीं है, 3-4 लोग के साथ तुम जाओ, वहाँ जाके देखो कैसा खेल रहे हैं. And then you watch who are the good players. If you feel strong, hit at their strong point. If you feel weak, hit at their weak point. And then he said, only one thing I'll tell you, remember this when you go to play with them. Outthink the opponent, outplan the opponent, outplay the opponent. Outthink, outplan, and outplay. See, 3 things very important he told. So you have to outthink, you have to outplan, and you have to outplay. So all 3 things have to be actually brought together. This point I wanted to tell. So a coach is a particular skill. If you are lacking, give that skill. For example, many times in India what happens? We are very good in dribbling in hockey. But when it comes to the killer instinct of shooting at the goal, we fail to do it. So what the coach has to do, give the killer instinct. You have to hit the goal. Don't keep the ball with you. Hit it into the goal. So this feeling must be, that is really the function of that. Means how do you win a game? So for that one, the coach is where you are deficient in, where you are defective, try to fill it up. And then say what is important, fix your priority, give your skill. So skill development will be, alongside with skill, he has to build a certain element of confidence. So that skill plus confidence becomes competence. Skill plus confidence. And one of the things that all gurus do is create that confidence. Confidence coming, that asking questions in such a way that person knows that yes, I am capable of doing it. So that is the skill of a mentor, that is the skill of a guru. So that is why we say gurus first begin by making you do the thinking, making you do the questioning. That is why we say it starts with listening. So listening means, first thing I'll tell you what is the Indian method of teaching. That is, listening is the first stage. Listening leads to learning. Listening leads to learning. Learning leads to thinking. You can't, before thinking you have to question, because questioning only makes you think. So one is listening, learning. Learning must lead to questioning. 4 types of question. Prashnena, ask a question. Pratiprashnena, ask a counter question. Abhaprashnena, ask all questions under the sky. Abhiprashnena, without fear ask question. 4 types of question. Only when you question, you start actually knowing. Till that time you don't know. For knowing all these things, so all these things will have to follow. After knowing, comes the question of actually understanding. Understanding leads to finally your ability to take a decision. So this is the process. Now I want to tell another thing. All leaders must create trust and have to impart values. Values are extremely important for us, and that is why we say, how do you actually make a person move from the bare necessities of life to the experiences of life to the ideals of life? This is how actually we train them up. And that is why I thought leadership means visualizing and thinking. Action leadership means coordination and influencing. And what is very important is linking the past with the present with the future. How do you link the past with the present with the future? And that is where I come to the concluding portion of my talk. And that will be one thing, that all mentors are helpful in transmission of wisdom and knowledge. They are helpful in providing psychosocial support. They help in your character building. They develop your sights, insights, and foresights. This is also a very great function. Also, not teaching, but help learning. Not teaching, but help learning, help questioning, and help thinking. And what is important is shedding the ego. Shedding the ego is the most important thing that is. And the other thing that they actually say is that making the invisible visible. That is why we say anything that happens first in the mind, next on the ground. That is very, very important. That is why we say the most important thing, and this is where I want to tell you, our Indian belief is Shravanam. Listening is the most important skill that must be imparted by the Guru. Shravanam leads to Mananam, that is thinking in your mind. Mananam leads to Smaranam, remembering and memorizing. And that leads to actually Nirdharanam. That means you decide what is right and what is wrong. And that leads to what is called Acharanam, or putting it into practice. This is the process through which you have to do it. And for this, you need first to cultivate a quiet mind, which is an open mind. And second, no interruptions, at full concentration. And next is a non-verbal clues and the gestures. And this is summed up in one acronym called ACOMED. Please just note down this and you will be absolutely fine with everything. First is attention. Attention leads to concentration. Concentration leads to observation. Observation leads to memorization. Memorization leads to imagination. Imagination leads to decision. This is the whole thing that you need to actually master. Very simple thing. I'll just give one instance and stop. Every day I go from my residence to an office. At Lakdi Ka Pool, I see a huge cinema hoarding. Huge cinema hoarding. When I am not attentive, I only see the outline of the hoarding. If I am attentive, I see the hoarding. If I concentrate, I see what the hero is, who is the heroine, what dress, what jewels, everything. If I observe a little more, it sticks in my mind, it's memorized. If my wife asks me, I can tell her every single detail, including which cinema hall it is playing. That is actually how you see attention, concentration, observation, memorize. Then imagination, it can run riot. To hold it in check, I need a discipline to hold it in check. You see, all these things are something which is to be lined up. And lastly, I will say, the best thing about mentorship was told by Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya says, the mentor must have clarity, but that clarity must be expressed in soft words, so that the person for whom it is intended must feel it is a special message only for him. Second, he should be knowledgeable, but have no pride whatsoever. And he must have valor with passions and wealth with sacrifice. These are the final things of what we can do. And the last but most important thing I want to tell you is two things which was told in Takshashila University 7,000 years ago. That what is the bedrock of leadership? It said, Ashma Bhava, be as strong as a rock in your determination. Parashu Bhava, be as sharp as a battle axe in your intellect. Ashmabhava in your determination, Parashubhava in your intellect, and in the battle of life, whenever the battle axe gets blunted, go back to the hard rock of your determination, hone it to the same sharpness, so that you can fight many a battle and win the war of life. I wish all persons, and particularly young people who have come here, to listen to the other speakers who will, I think, give much more practical hints as to how it should be done, and particularly what are the specific strategies of one, discovering the need for leadership, discovering what is within you and what needs to be imparted to you, and putting you on the way of how you can step up and go from a present 400 kV to 11 kV to 440 to 660 to 880 voltage, so that that voltage can reach the far corners of this earth. Thank you for this opportunity.
In mission